Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everybody. I want to do it at one shot for everybody.
Right. Okay. And
Okay, let us begin with the metta. May all beings be happy and secure. May all beings have happy minds. Whatever living beings there may be, without exception, weak or strong, long, large, medium, short, subtle or gross, visible or invisible, living near or far, born or coming to birth, may all beings have happy minds. Let no one deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere, neither from anger nor ill will should anyone wish harm to another. As a mother would risk her own life to protect her only child, even so towards all living beings, one should cultivate a boundless heart. One should cultivate for all the world a heart of boundless loving friendliness, above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hate or resentment, whether standing, walking, sitting, lying down, or whenever awake. One should develop this mindfulness. This is called divinely dwelling here, not falling into erroneous views, but virtuous and endowed with vision, removing desires for sensual pleasures. One comes never again to birth in the womb. Okay, let us continue our meditation. As usual, let us focus our mind on our breath, noticing pure, simple breath without verbalizing or conceptualizing or saying, I breathe. Just let the breath flow in and out. And focus the mind on the rims of your nostrils so that you will notice the breath entering your lungs and then expanding lung area and lower abdominal area. As they expand when we breathe, they contract when we breathe out. Lower abdomen contracts, lungs contract, and the breath leaves our nostrils. And this happens all the time, and they become so regular and normal that sometimes we even don't notice all of them, but the touch of breath at the rims of our nostrils. And then we see that the feeling that arises with that fade and perception arises with that, thought arises and consciousness arises, and they pass away as they arise. Always constantly changing. Nothing fixed or stays the same. Always in the state of flux, flow, moving. Knowing this, the desire to hold on to anything fades away. That is one hindrance called kama chanda. And then as the body, mind, the breath relax, in the relaxed state of mind without rigidity, without uptightness, anger fades away and loving, friendly feelings arises. And then our restlessness and worry fades away and compassion takes its place. Then we become more energetic, so our sleepiness and drowsiness fade away. And then we get confidence, trust in seeing the truth that arises very naturally. Truth arises naturally. What is the truth? The greed fades away, hatred fades away, restlessness fades away, sleepiness and drowsiness fades away. In their place, letting go of thought, nekkhamma sankappa, loving friendliness, avyapada sankappa, compassion, avihingsa sankappa, and virya, that energy arise. Seeing all this, confidence arises and doubt fades away. When this happens, joy arises. That leads to more tranquility, peace, passaddhi. That leads to happiness, which eventually leads to concentration. When we gain concentration, we notice the concentration itself is very, very clear, clean, one-pointedness of mind, of wholesome mental states. It's called in Pali kusala chittassa ekaggata. One-pointedness of wholesome mind is called concentration. That concentration can see the subtlest changes taking place in us. Everything in the most subtle way arise and pass away. And seeing this, our notion of self, notion of anything permanent fades away. We see impermanence, we see unsatisfactoriness, we see selflessness at the concentrated state of mind. That's a very meaningful, powerful achievement. Let us try that and continue our practice. Dukkha pattaca niddukkha, bhaya pattaca nibbhaya, soka pattaca nissoka, hontu sabbe pipanino. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear-struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. So too may all beings be. With this metta wish, I like to answer your question if you have any. I think we have not received any questions
by
on email, but I think you can ask me on the spot right now if you have any question. Write it on the notebook and Brian will read them for me.
Okay, Bhante, first question. Excuse me. When one is physically exhausted, can one meditate?
No. When physically exhausted and when you try to meditate, you fall asleep and meditation becomes not very productive, and therefore I would suggest when you are physically exhausted, you must take rest. I know this for sure because that happens to me. There are moments that I cannot talk, cannot meditate when I am exhausted. At that time I simply sit and rest, may fall asleep. That's okay. When we have that kind of short nap, we may refresh ourselves and then we'll be ready for meditation. Yes. Even the Buddha has mentioned this in Dvedha Vitakka Sutta, when he divided thoughts into two groups, wholesome and unwholesome. And when he let go of unwholesome, he has only wholesome thought, before he attained enlightenment though. And his wholesome thought was rising like waterfall, one after the other, one after the other one, and he enjoyed wholesome thoughts. But even then, that made him very tired. Then he let the mind settle internally by taking rest. And then the body rests, the mind rests, and you get refreshed. So that's what we all have to do. When the body is exhausted, we don't try to push too hard. Okay. Next question.
Dear Bhante, how does one discern between thinking and Dhamma investigation?
Thinking, Dhamma investigation, thinking is, you may think of all sort of things, but if you think of Dhamma, taking one Dhamma point, and very mindfully you can think, and then more and more clarity will arise. Your awareness of Dhamma becomes more and more clear to you. That is how we do investigation. questioning and asking yourself how this happens, and so forth. Ask questions. For instance, when we say when we gain concentration, we notice the subtlest changes in us. Then we can ask a question ourselves: what is the point in seeing all these changes, subtlest changes? The point in seeing the subtlest changes or impermanence in the subtlest form is to get insight into the reality that there is nothing called permanent something, permanent self or permanent anything, I, my, mine. All is volatile, evaporating, disappearing. In order to get this awareness, we use concentrated mind. So when we investigate the reason why we do this, we get this answer. And similarly, if any Dhamma question, Dhamma point, you take into consideration, take into mind, notice it, pay attention to it, keep asking, is this wholesome or not wholesome? This is beneficial or not beneficial? This hurts me, hurts others, it doesn't hurt me, it doesn't hurt others, and so on. You keep investigating. That is a good way of thinking. That thinking is called Dhamma Vichaya Sambhojjhanga, the having wholesome thoughts. It is called investigation of Dhamma. In the Noble Eightfold Path, somebody can ask, where can we find investigation of Dhamma in the Noble Eightfold Path? In the Noble Eightfold Path, Bojjhanga is not mentioned. Right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration are there. The word Bojjhanga is not mentioned there. So one may ask, where is Bojjhangas in the Noble Eightfold Path? So we keep asking questions like this. Then we find where it is. It is in several places. In right effort there is Bojjhanga, there is Viriya Sambhojjhanga, and there is right concentration, it is called Samadhi Sambhojjhanga, and there is Bojjhanga in Dhamma Vichaya Sambhojjhanga, in right, what you call, in Vitakka, like Avyapada Vitakka, Nekkhamma Vitakka, Avyapada Vitakka, Avihimsa Vitakka. In there we have investigation of Dhamma, fact of enlightenment, and so forth. You keep digging into Dhamma, and trying to find out where such and such thing is mentioned. For instance, also you can ask, we have to practice generosity. Where is generosity in the Noble Eightfold Path? We ask that question. That is investigation of Dhamma. Like that, the answer to that question is the generosity in the investigation or in the Noble Eightfold Path we find also in the Vitakka, the second step, Samma Sankappa. Samma Sankappa means Nekkhamma Sankappa is directly related to dana, giving, letting go, generosity, and so forth. We keep thinking, investigating. So that kind of thinking is encouraged by the Buddha. So that is the kind of thinking we must do. That is investigation of Dhamma. Okay?
Thank you, Bhante.
You're welcome.
Next question. Dear Bhante, thank you for your wonderful teachings. What are your thoughts on the differences between meditating on a single object, such as the breath, versus methods that emphasize a complete open or anchorless awareness?
Now,
And,
is that, yeah?
and then he goes on to say, is this dichotomy reflected in the Satipatthana Sutta?
No. Now, paying attention to whatever arises is important. Just keeping mind wide open, looking at the horizon without any making the mind completely blank and stay there. Many people do that. They go to the beaches, and when they go to beaches, they have their beach chair, sit down, relax, and they hear the waves of the ocean, and the seagulls are flying, fishing are jumping up and down, and very cool breeze is coming from the ocean or sunset and so forth. They can sit there just looking at them, relaxing. That is not meditation at all. You don't gain any insight from that. The meditation is an active participation of what is happening to you in you. For instance, you mentioned the breath. Not only breath, anything you experience. What do you notice in the breath? Constant change. If you go to the ocean and see waves are changing, constantly coming and going, appearing, and that is a meditation. You can meditate. You can see impermanence of the waves. That is, of course, somewhat rough outside, but the real meditation is seeing what happens to you within yourself. Because I emphasize this, because all our dukkha, suffering, is in us, not in the ocean, not in the waves, and so on. Dukkha arises in us. Uh, in fact, the deepest, the meaning of dukkha is this. Buddha give, Buddha gave a list of dukkhas, not getting what one wants and so forth, and old age and separating from loved ones, uniting with unloved ones, and so forth and so on. Many examples, all are examples. Finally, he said, in short, that is summed up. That is the deepest place where we can see suffering. He said, in short, these five aggregates are suffering. That is existential suffering. Existential. Existing itself is suffering. When one is liberated from that kind of suffering, the body exists, feeling exists, perception exists, consciousness exists, but they don't have suffering. Why? In every cell in our body, there is dukkha because every cell is demanding this, demanding, always demanding. protein, vitamin, oxygen, and iron, mineral, and all these the cells are demanding all the time. So long as we have this kind of demanding, there is a thirst, wanting this, wanting that, wanting that. That is the deepest way of seeing suffering. When one is liberated from that feeling, even though when one is hungry, one may eat, but without any desire, any clinging, any craving for food, just to quench the thirst or hunger, and so forth. So, therefore, we have to look at ourselves, inside ourselves, to see what is happening to this body and mind, constantly changing. And therefore, keep making the mind totally blank does not bring any insight from meditation. Okay?
Thank you, Bante. The next question is Bante, you explained mind is like a city. Could you explain why the body is like a clay pot? Is it because of the fragility of the
Right, it is brittle. It is subject to breakup anytime. So body, a very good description is given in Samyutta Nikaya. Body is called Rupa. Rupa. Buddha defined the word Rupa using, it is sort of like play on words, like Rupati iti Rupang. Rupati iti Rupang. Kena Rupati, Vatena Rupati, Sitena Rupati, Jigacha Rupati, Pipasaya Rupati, Dansamakasavata Tapasring, Sapasampasanang Rupati, and like that. So, the body is is altering. Rupana means it's changing or altering. It is existing position. For instance, when there is cold, immediately our sweat pores close, and sometimes goosebumps arise on our skin when it is cold. When it is hot, our sweat pores open and we feel sweat coming out. When it is dry, we feel the skin is dry. When we are hungry, we feel the inner, our gastric juice, bile and so forth come and start eating up our stomach walls, making uncomfortable. When we are thirsty, also we feel dryness in our throat and so forth. And when mosquito bites, gadfly bites, and any leaves touch our skin, some changes take place very quickly due to that. Since all this happen, the body's situation is subject to change, just like clay pot. It called break. Mind is called like a city. Mind is called like a city. You go to a city, big city or small city. What do you see? suppose I am in West Virginia in the forest. When I go to a city, my ears are bombarded with all kind of noise, vehicle, people, music, movements. Eyes are already bombarded with all these movements. So many movements are there constantly. I think long ago somebody wrote a video of big city, maybe like New York, and I don't remember how it happened. I saw it in video clip somebody sent me, and I saw the movements. So many things move. That is on the ground, and underground other movements, water channels, electric wires, telephone wires, all kind of sewer systems, uh, purified water, dirty water, and so forth and so on. So many activities. Our mind is like that. And that is why the Buddha used this very powerful, meaningful simile to tell that Venerable Sariputta's disciples who could not meditate on impurities of the body. Okay.
Thank you, Bante.
Yes, another question.
One person would like to know how long they should be meditating.
How long one should meditate?
Per sitting.
I see, in one sitting? Okay. In sitting, that all depends on the person's ability to sit. Some people can sit very comfortably on the right kind of posture, on the right cushion, at right time, right place. And some people can sit for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. Others who cannot sit that long has to decide how long they can do it without having excruciating pain. That may be half an hour, 45 minutes, or 1 hour, and so on. This is sort of variable factor in meditation. It is not fixed how long one should sit. So each person has to make one's own decision how long one should sit. Yes.
Thank you, Bante. Dear Bante, is it better to stick to one meditation or move back and forth between different meditations according to my mood?
Well,
maybe she means anapana versus metta versus vipassana, different types of.
Right. If the person is full of metta, some people are very, very, they have developed their metta for a long time. For them, metta meditation is good. If you have not done that long, you may start with that and switch on to breathing, mindfulness of breathing. Mindfulness of breathing is a very good subject. It opens up all the 5 aggregates, as I mentioned, every day. And Buddha used this as, even for his enlightenment, he used the mindfulness of breathing. I would recommend anybody start with metta and then immediately start focusing mind on the breathing as we mentioned every day. That is what I would like to recommend to anybody. So instead of going from object to object. If somebody prefers using the various parts of the body as an object, that person has to be very mindful of how the person does it without falling into any kind of emotions. Therefore, that also is a good subject of meditation. There are various subjects, but one has to choose one and stick to that. But if one were to move from object to object, then the person may not gain good results. However, I must say, whatever subject you choose to as a subject of your meditation, if you do vipassana meditation, you must be able to see anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and selflessness. Only these three things you must see in any subject you select for your meditation practice, for vipassana meditation. If you want to gain even concentration, you can gain from that practice. Okay? Any other question?
We don't have a lot of time, but this seems like a short question. What's the difference between, I think this is maybe a typo, I think it's Arahant, and what's the difference between an Arahant and enlightenment? It says Arahath. I don't know if is that a word? Arahath?
It should be Arahant.
Arahant, yeah.
Arahant and enlightenment are the same. But enlightenment is used for different stages. One who attains the stream entry also enlightened to that extent. One who enters the one's eternal state, that is enlightened state. But Arahant is the fully enlightened state. I think it is better to use the word, if you want to mean the last attainment, it would be better to use Arahant, or fully enlightened state, in order to make it even clearer. Okay?
Another question. I don't know what this is, Bhante, but it says, what is the benefit of sitter's practice? Nesaji kanja. This one. Nesaji kaanga. And would you recommend it to lay practitioners?
Nesajika Anga.
Anga. Do you know that?
Yeah, there are 13 austere practices called Dhutanga. I think Nesajja means Nisajja, doing only sitting meditation. If one accept this as one's austere practice, I think I don't think that would be practical for any lay person. Even the monastics, one posture, to assume one posture would not be very practical, but the person must use several postures in order to make meditation more practical. In one posture, it would be difficult because of other physiological discomfort and perhaps difficulties. Then, therefore, I would not recommend that. And these days, in fact, I don't hear anybody practicing all kind of austere practices for in meditation. I don't know anybody. There may be, I don't know everyone that meditates, there may be some who are doing that somewhere. I think since you have not sent us a written question, Brian is so smart to select questions that previously some people wrote which we could not answer before. So he has a reserve of questions in case of emergency. So he asked question from the reserve.
We got many today also. There were about 12 questions.
New questions?
Oh, yeah, lots of new questions.
Okay.
So now I have more reserves.
One more reserve. Okay. So you don't have to worry about questions.
No.
Okay. Okay, friends, I want to end this session, and I want to conclude wishing all, sending metta to everybody, wishing them to be free from suffering. Those who are in hospitals, may they receive this metta message, and may they recover very quickly and return to normal life, continue their Dhamma practice, meditation practice, understand Dhamma, and liberate themselves from suffering forever. There are others who are who are grieving the death of their loved ones. May they also understand Dhamma and overcome their grief and liberate themselves from suffering, samsaric suffering. And there are so many compassionate people who are like doctors, nurses, and hospital staff supporting the patients. May they continue their very generous, marvelous service, compassionate service, and liberate themselves from samsaric suffering. There are many generous people who are supporting people in many ways, supporting organizations, supporting companies to find out a vaccine. We hope something will come up very soon, and let them continue their service. May they liberate themselves from suffering. May all the leaders who have done good work continue their good work, and other leaders who have not yet come to certain decisions, may they have wisdom, understanding, courage, determination, and wisdom to make right decisions. And thank you all for participating in this session.